She was a child and he was a full-blown adult. Hey guys, what's up? My name is Sky Webb and I'm here to talk about a true crime story that I cannot get off my mind. But before I get started, I just want to put out a little disclaimer. There may no harm to any of the victims or the victims' families, and I wish everybody who was hurt within this story the utmost peace and solace, either in rest or in recovery. With that out of the way, happy True Crime Thursday. Welcome back to my channel, or just welcome. I'm really glad to have you here. Thank you so much for clicking on this video and I really hope you enjoy. Before I start, I just want to let you guys know that this story does involve a death of a child, so if that's not something you want to hear about, not something you're into, make sure to click off this video because this video is not the one for you. But I do have a whole channel full of videos that don't involve children, so go check one of those out instead if you feel like it. Today we're going to be looking into the Richardson family murders. The Richardson family murders took place in a small town called Medicine Hat, Alberta, which is in Canada, and they occurred in April 2006. Honestly, I wish my hometown was as funky as that is. Like, I would happily, proudly say that I'm from a place called Medicine Hat, and I'd just be waiting for someone to pull me up on it. Like, fuck yeah. So the Richardson family consisted of 4 people: mum, whose name was Deborah, dad, who was Mark, little brother, who was Tyler Jacob, but he was known as Jacob, and big sis Jasmine. So Jasmine was 12 years old at the time and Jacob was only 8. The siblings were pretty different. Jasmine was said to be a really good kid, really well-mannered, really well-behaved, and she was a definite rule follower. Like, she respected authority a lot, even if it didn't necessarily benefit her. She just followed all the rules, and that was in school and church and all group setting places like that where it's important to follow authority. So everyone thought that she was just like a saint of a child because she never caused any issues. Whereas Jacob was a little bit different. He was a little bit more outspoken, more loud. He liked to be the class clown and be really playful, and he had a big personality. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, but in a group setting like at church or at school, the teachers and the authority tend not to like kids that have big personalities because it can be very hard to get them to settle down and get everybody on the same page and confining to all the rules. And so they basically thought that Jasmine was a saint and Jacob was a little shit. When Jasmine turned 12, her attitude very slowly started to change, and that's pretty normal for a 12-year-old. They're just becoming a teenager. They're starting to be more aware of things around them and take things in a very different perspective, so that's perfectly normal. But her attitude change was really, really obvious because she was the kind of girl who would wear pinks and pastels and whites and soft colors and have very minimal makeup, if any makeup. She liked to have her nails painted nicely. She liked to be really presentable in a very churchy Sunday school type of vibe. And all of that changed. Now she started to wear a lot of black. She liked to wear a lot of dark colors and dark accessories, and then she started doing her makeup really dark as well. So she'd wear really heavy eyeliner and lots of black and grey eyeshadows, and then she started painting her nails black, and soon she was pretty much just fully decked out in black, which at this point I feel like I'm just describing myself. Obviously there's nothing wrong with wearing black, but it was just very, very noticeable for her because the change was so different to what she used to wear. And then on top of that, her music tastes sort of changed as well. She no longer listened to nice soft country or pop. She now liked to listen to rock and punk music and heavy music, as my mother would call it. I basically feel like I'm just literally describing myself. Anyway, because all of her interests did start to change, it did have a pretty big impact on her friendships. So a lot of her friends, they just sort of started to drift apart because they no longer shared the same interests, and there was no hard feelings or anything, but they just sort of went their own ways. A lot of people in the community were a little bit judgmental about it as well because she'd like to wear a lot of accessories. So she'd wear big chokers and studded wristbands. She'd wear the fishnet stockings and the heavy chains, and people would sort of look at her and be like, what the fuck? And again, all of these things are pretty fucking normal. Remember the whole the Tumblr choker phase where every bitch was wearing a fucking choker? And don't forget Billie Eilish making the whole heavy chain thing an in thing again. So all these things were really normal, but because it was such a huge contrast to what she used to do, everyone had something to say about it. And then Jasmine started drawing like little fake tattoos on her skin with an eyeliner pen or an eyeliner pencil, and she'd draw like satanic symbols on her face and her fingers and her arms. And she went to a Catholic school, so this wasn't the best look, and she would get called into the office a lot because the teachers would be like, you need to take that off. We're in a Catholic school, you can't have satanic symbols all over you, like take that shit off. And now they knew Jasmine as being a really good girl, following all the rules, never having any issues, not being confrontational at all. And so they were super surprised to see her have a bit of an attitude. Don't get me wrong, she was still doing really well at school. She still had her grades all in order, like her work ethic hadn't dropped whatsoever, but it was just her attitude. So the teachers were really taken aback when she was a little bit confrontational, and when she would stick up for herself, and when she wouldn't just say okay, and they were like, fuck. So she continued to break the dress code, and she continued to draw these tattoos on herself, and she continued to have this attitude at the school. So then Jasmine goes and watches a punk rock concert, a punk rock show. And she meets this guy, and she's like instantly in love. Like, he's such a bad boy. He's fully decked out in black. He's got the black eyeliner and he's got the like studded wristband chain things on. She thinks he's hella cool. He's showing her so much attention, like asking her questions, complimenting her, just giving her, showering her in attention, which being a 12-year-old girl, you're gonna fucking like, especially when it's an older guy. And he was an older guy. So this guy's name was Jeremy Steinke. I don't know. And he was considerably older than Jasmine was. He was 23 and she was 12. That's a big difference. So I mean, I'm sure you guys can probably already guess what kind of life Jeremy lives, because most 24-year-olds, 23-year-olds, whatever, that date 12-year-olds all live pretty identically shitty fucking lives. He was unemployed, shocker, lived with his parents, a high school dropout. What more do you need to know? And he too was labeled a goth, like a full-blown goth. Like, he was always all decked out in black, always had the spiky accessories, always had the massive, just, you know what a goth looks like just very massive shit. And he had like the black eyeliner that he would smudge on purpose to look all angsty, and it was a lot. It was a look. And Jasmine loved it. She was like head over heels, love at first sight, like just infatuated with him straight off the bat. And so she gives him her number. So they start texting super frequently, and then Jasmine starts lying to her parents about where she's going. She'll say she's like seeing a friend, but she's actually out there seeing Jeremy. And so they're hanging out so often that they're pretty much together 24/7, because even when they're not hanging out, they're texting each other. So they're like literally in contact 24/7. They're hanging out and talking way more than any full-grown adult should be with a strange child, or what a child should be with a strange adult. That probably makes more sense. So as I said, Jeremy was super gothic, and so he wore this big long chain necklace, and at the end of this necklace was a vial, and inside this vial he claimed was human blood. Jeremy told Jasmine that he loved the taste of human blood, and that it was something his body craved and something he actually needed to survive. The reason he said he needed this blood to survive, not because he was a vampire, no, that would be ridiculous. No, because he's a werewolf. Not just any old werewolf, not just the new werewolf on the block. No, he was a 300-year-old werewolf. And what was Jasmine's reaction to this, you may ask? Hot. No, I don't know what she actually said in reality, but she wasn't turned off by any means. This apparently wasn't a red flag for 12-year-old Jasmine. They would message every minute of every day. They would hang out every chance possible. She would continue to lie to her parents, and at this point they were sexually active, which is despicable on Jeremy's part, in my opinion. So now Jasmine managed to become even more gothic under Jeremy's influence. I don't know if gothic is the right word, because I feel like gothic is more how you dress and like what you listen to, not necessarily your attitude. I don't know if I'm wrong about that. But her attitude got a lot worse, and those same friends that previously had just drifted apart, they now said that they were sort of fearful of her, a little bit intimidated by her. Jasmine now seemed to enjoy scaring people or intimidating people. She was very confrontational about it. She wouldn't just mind her business. She would want to be in people's faces and making them feel uncomfortable. I think that's the best way to put it. She liked and enjoyed to make people feel uncomfortable because it made her feel powerful. And that's now something that she got off on. This isn't the only thing that Jeremy had influence over. He also influenced who she looked up to and who she saw as people to look to for guidance or for moralness or for moral guidance. So previously on her social media, she had listed as her heroes her mum, her dad, a family member, and God. And now, for example, she would have people like Jeffrey Dahmer and Marilyn Manson, and people that aren't necessarily great role models to have in life, especially when you're 12 years old. Obviously, there's no issue being interested in these kinds of people. Like, look at my entire channel. That's kind of the premise. But when you're 12 years old and you're looking up to these people as actual life role models, that's a big difference. Luckily, her parents actually found her social media pages and they discovered that she was dating big old adult Jeremy. And so they were like, enough is enough, you're grounded, this is over, you are no longer to see him, no longer to talk to him, end of, don't want to hear about it. And I mean, what better of a reaction could you ask for? Like, that's probably the best way to approach it. But despite her being grounded, except for school, that's the only place she was allowed to go, she basically just lost her shit and got even worse because she just wasn't having it. At this point, it was essentially a war zone within their household. She hated them for keeping her away from Jeremy, hated them for enforcing any type of rules on her, and she just like lost the fucking plot. So Jasmine sent Jeremy a message one night and basically just proposed the idea that maybe if they just got rid of the problem, their lives would be a lot easier and they could just move on and, you know, no issues. So Jasmine wrote to Jeremy and said, I have this plan. It begins with me killing them and me living with you. And in response, Jeremy would say things like, I want to slit their throats and they'll regret what they've done. That's fucked up. So on the 23rd of April 2006, it was around bedtime and Deborah hears a weird noise coming from downstairs. So she heads downstairs to see what's going on. She probably thought that it was one of the kids. And when she walks into the kitchen, she actually finds a man wearing a mask, brandishing a knife. So obviously she screams naturally and tries to run away, tries to get away, but this man attacks her and he stabs her. He stabs her a total of 12 times. And the entire time that it takes for him to stab her over and over, she continues to scream. She's screaming for her fucking life. And so by the time he finishes, she's actually woken up the entire house. So Mark, which is her husband and Jasmine's dad, he comes running down the stairs trying to find out what the fuck is happening in his house. And he runs straight in, sees what's happening, and immediately reacts. So he grabs a screwdriver off the bench, off the kitchen bench, and attacks this man. So he tries to disarm him, he tries to get the knife off him, he's punching him in the face, he's trying to grab the knife, he's scratching him, like going ballistic essentially to try and get this man, and he put up a really, really good fight. But unfortunately, there's just not a lot you can do when you're up against a knife. Like, there just really isn't that much you can do. So Mark ends up being stabbed 24 times. So sadly, both Deborah and Mark are killed in the kitchen. So that leaves only Jasmine and her younger brother alive in the house. Jasmine's brother, Jacob, his room is right next door to hers. So when the screaming started, he freaked out and started crying and tried to hide behind the bed. And so Jasmine actually ran into his room and tried to console him. She was hugging him. She was covering his ears so that he didn't have to hear the mum screams or the dad's fighting. And he was just weeping into her chest, like petrified. He's 8 years old. You would be petrified. So the killer comes into Jacob's room, and the killer's obviously Jeremy. Like, it's Jeremy. Jeremy's the killer. So Jeremy comes into Jacob's room, and Jasmine decides that they now need to kill Jacob. They need to kill the innocent 8-year-old who's crying in her arms. I really do not comprehend why anyone would feel like they needed to do this. He was completely innocent. He had no idea what was going on. He wouldn't have known who the killer was. Like, he wouldn't have offered any, like, it's not like he was a witness. He wouldn't have offered any information. He wouldn't have got anyone in trouble. He wouldn't have done anything. But Jasmine claims that the reason they decided they needed to kill him was because his parents were gone, so why would he want to live all by himself? So she was like, well, you're better off dead. So Jasmine stabs her innocent 8-year-old brother, who is still crying in her arms, trusting her, 5 times, and then slits his throat. That makes me so fucking upset. It's not even fucking okay. That is so brutal, dude. So the next day, one of Jacob's little friends, he comes over and wants to play. This kid's only 6 years old, so he's knocking on the door. He's not getting any response because everyone's fucking dead. And so he decides to look into the window, and this poor little 6-year-old sees a pool of fucking blood and 2 dead bodies. So he obviously freaks the fuck out and runs home, tells his parents, and his parents come and have a look for themselves before calling the police. So at first the police thought that it was like burglary or something along those lines, where it's a little bit like of a random target, because it's not very often that you find an entire family slaughtered. But then when they realized, they looked on like a photo frame and realized that there was actually a 4th member of the family. They decided that it was a kidnapping, because someone had obviously killed these people and now the girl was missing. Obviously she'd been kidnapped. So they start looking for Jasmine really, really desperately, not because they think that she's a suspect, but because they think that she's an innocent victim, and they think that they need to find her, otherwise it could be like a life or death situation and she could be killed. So they start looking through all of her belongings. They go to the school and go through her locker. They talk to people all about Jasmine. They put out an Amber Alert and everything. And then as they're going through the lockers, they find this bizarre drawing of stick figures that basically depicts what they assume to be Jasmine burning people alive and like laughing about it, like mwahahaha. And they're like, what the fuck? And this drawing was enough for them to completely change their viewpoint, and they now decided that they needed to find her because she was a suspect and not necessarily a victim. Luckily, they find her within 24 hours of actually discovering the murders, and they find her about 100 miles away in a town called Leader. So straight off the bat, they arrest both her and Jeremy. They were found together, and police claim that they had just 0 remorse, 0 worries, didn't even seem like fearful of what was happening, like basically just very chill about the whole situation. So when Jasmine went to trial, she didn't deny killing her family at all, but when asked why she did it, she basically just said she loved Jeremy so much that she thought it would bring them closer together, and that's what was important to her at the time. Then, as a way to display her lack of remorse about the loss of her family, they showed letters between her and Jeremy as they were both locked up. They were sending letters back and forth, and basically Jasmine just continued to call them both legends, said that they were legends for what they had done. Absolutely 0 remorse, 0 concern, 0 regret. The letters just showed a bunch of dumb shit, a lot about being legends, a lot about immortality and werewolfness. And then in one of the letters from Jeremy, he actually asked Jasmine to marry him, to which she said, yes, 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 of course. And then she ended the letter by saying, like, everyone's against us. They really are against us. I don't even want to say that loud because, like, what? And she signed off the letter, like, ended the letter by saying raw, like raw XD. That is so fucking funny. Raw, I love you and dinosaur. If they weren't, like, so psychotic, that would be even funnier, but, like, what the fuck? So when talking about why Jasmine killed her little brother, she didn't claim that she did it out of like fear of Jeremy or anything like that, but she did claim that Jeremy came in and started saying, you need to kill him, you need to kill him. And she decided that he had killed people for her parents, so she now needed to participate and kill someone for him so that they were even, which is disgusting. So on the 9th of July 2007, Jasmine Richardson was found guilty on 3 counts of first-degree murder. And if she had have been older, that would have equated to a much higher sentence, but because she was only 12 years old, the maximum penalty for someone who's 12 years old in Canada is only 10 years. So she was only sentenced to 10 years imprisonment, but she was also granted a credit for time spent already in jail while she was like awaiting the trial, and she was awarded 18 months worth of credit for that. On top of that, 4 out of the 10 years that she was sentenced to was to be served at a psychiatric facility rather than an actual like prison. So their primary focus is rehabilitation rather than punishment. A lot of people are really angry by that result because obviously like 4 years, potentially less within prison, isn't a lot when you've killed 3 people, you slit an 8-year-old's throat. Like that should be a much higher sentence. But at the same time, I personally believe in rehabilitation, so it's very like, it's sort of a hard one, I guess. So Jasmine was actually released in 2016 and she was about 22, 23 years old at the time, which is fairly close to my age. I just turned 21, so I mean, I feel like I have my whole life ahead of me. I feel like she had her whole life ahead of her, and that's not fair. That's not right when she killed 3 people. Plus, if she can go 5 years without any legal troubles, then her whole juvenile record will be expunged. It'll be completely erased. So she will go on living her life as if nothing ever happened, as if she never had a family, she never killed her family, and she never did it for a 300-year-old werewolf. Jeremy was found guilty of 3 counts of first-degree murder as well, but he was sentenced to 3 consecutive life sentences, 1 for every first-degree murder charge. So he will be eligible for parole after 25 years. So a lot of people actually do support Jeremy in this whole situation because they believe that he had such a bad upbringing that really impaired his way of thinking. They think that he may have been impacted by his mother abusing alcohol while she was pregnant, and they think that impaired his thinking quite a lot. So they actually allege that Jasmine took advantage of him and manipulated him, which I have a very hard time believing because she was 12 years old and he was an adult, and there's no actual proof of any like developmental delays. There's no proof of any impaired thinking within Jeremy, so I just don't know how you can come to that conclusion that a 12-year-old was manipulating a grown man. But anyway, let me know what you think in the comments. I'd really love to hear your opinion. I'd really like to know what you think about people defending Jeremy. Do you really think that a 12-year-old manipulated him, or do you think that it was the other way around? What do you think about Jasmine's sentencing? Do you think that she got off way too easy, or do you think that it's fair? Let me know in the comments down below, or you can head over to my Facebook, which is skyweb with 3 B's, and let me know there. I'd really love to know your opinions. Be sure to give this video a big thumbs up if you feel like it. I would really appreciate it, and be sure to subscribe so that you can see all my new videos. I post every single Thursday all about true crime, and I'd love to have you be a part of it. Make sure you guys are being safe out there. Do not date any werewolves. Don't drink blood because it'll make you cuckoo. And most importantly, don't believe older men when they tell you they love you if you're underage, because I promise you, baby girl, they don't. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed. Bye!